Imagine you are floating in the infinite cosmos, surrounded by absolute darkness and a deafening silence. In your hand, you grip an ancient compass. For as long as you can remember, it has been your only guide. Its needle has always pointed steadfastly in one absolute direction, the north, known as truth, meaning, and the end. But just now, you look down, and your heart stops. The needle of the compass is not pointing anywhere. It isn't spinning wildly, it is melting. Before your very eyes, like a candle touched by flame, it twists, shatters, and dissolves into a meaningless puddle of liquid metal which then evaporates into nothingness. You have lost your only point of reference. Up and down, left and right, past and future, all coordinates dissolve in an instant. You are thrown into an absolute, directionless freedom, and this freedom brings you not liberation, but a bone-deep fear you have never known. Now, return to reality. Have you ever felt this way? Have you ever woken up in the dead of night, your heart pounding, with no idea why you're so anxious? You work relentlessly, love fiercely, travel the world, filling every minute with consumption, entertainment, and social gatherings. But why is it that the more you possess, the emptier you feel inside? Why, when you finally climb to that long dreamed-of position, do you find not satisfaction, but a profound, almost comical sense of absurdity? Why, when faced with countless choices, do you feel not freedom, but complete paralysis? You chase one life guru after another, subscribing to one way of life after another, from minimalism to hustle culture, from spiritual retreats to radical rationality. You wander like a hungry ghost through a spiritual supermarket, trying to find a sturdy shelf for your teetering life to rest upon. But you will eventually discover that every shelf will collapse. Over a century ago, a madman who stared into the abyss until he himself became the abyss, wrote a diagnosis for the very feeling you are experiencing now. He wasn't preaching a sermon or casting a curse. He was simply, like a calm physician, announcing the sickness of an entire era. This man was Friedrich Nietzsche, and with the most audacious and unsettling sentence in the history of human thought, he defined your confusion. God is dead. Don't misunderstand. Nietzsche wasn't announcing the theological end of a specific deity. His voice pierced through the stained glass windows of the church and stabbed directly into your heart. What he revealed was a psychological truth far more terrifying than the death of any god. The absolute, ultimate coordinate system we relied on for survival, whether it was religion, morality, truth, or collective belief, has been utterly destroyed by our own hands with the sharp blade of our own reason. It was we who killed the one absolute source of value. But the most perverse and fatal part is this. After personally demolishing the only lighthouse, we now desperately search for its replacement in the dark ocean. We worship money. We worship power, we worship science, we worship love, we worship success, and we even worship self-growth itself. We have turned these things into new gods, bowing before them, offering up our time, our energy, and even our souls. Have you noticed that these new gods are even more tyrannical, more demanding than the old one? They promise you everything, but in the end, they only leave you more anxious, more exhausted, and less like yourself. We are like the murderers who killed God and then frantically began searching for God, wandering aimlessly through the ruins we created. We thought we were free, yet we have never been so utterly enslaved. Because the truly terrifying part of the phrase, God is dead, was never the first half. It's the second half, the part that Nietzsche spoke next, the part that countless people have ignored. That is the truly chilling truth in this cosmic odyssey of being lost. That ignored, more terrifying second half was the question Nietzsche, speaking through a madman, hurled at the bewildered crowd in the marketplace. God is dead. God remains dead, and we have killed him. How shall we comfort ourselves, the murderers of all murderers? Is not the greatness of this deed too great for us? Must we ourselves not become gods simply to appear worthy of it? Now, for a moment, forget the word God. Replace it with the highest anchor point within you, the ultimate law you absolutely trust, the one that defines how you should live. It could be the belief that hard work always pays off, the moral law that good deeds are rewarded, the rational conviction that science can explain everything, or even the subconscious contract that if I am perfect enough, I will be loved. Nietzsche's question now pierces through history and strikes your soul. When this highest anchor point you depend on collapses, not because it was wrong, but because you, with your own intelligence, doubt, and experience, personally, killed its absolute nature. How do you, the murderer, find solace? This is the abyss of our time. The psychological root of this abyss can be traced to what Carl Jung called the collective unconscious. Throughout human history, God or a similar ultimate authority was not just a religious symbol, it was the external projection of our inner self, the center of our psyche that integrates our conscious and unconscious, our light and our darkness. It was like a spiritual sun whose gravity maintained the order of our inner world, keeping planets like consciousness, emotions, and desires in their proper orbits. And God is dead on a psychological level means the extinguishing of this spiritual sun. When the sun disappears, the planet's orbits descend into chaos. This is the source of the inner division you feel. Your reason tells you one thing, while your emotions push you in another direction. Your desires roar, while your morality tries to chain them down. You long for deep connection, yet you choose distance for fear of being consumed. You are no longer a whole person with a center of gravity. You have become a battlefield where countless opposing versions of you wage an endless war. Even more terrifying, the human psyche abhors a vacuum. When that absolute, sacred center vanishes, it leaves behind a vast, horrifying void of value. To fill this void, to escape that feeling of weightlessness in the cosmos, we begin to frantically, unscrupulously manufacture new gods. These new gods are the idols of our age. The first god is called reason and progress. We believe that with enough data and flawless logic, we can engineer the perfect life and build the perfect society. We treat emotions, intuition, and inspiration, things that cannot be quantified, as bugs in the system, trying to optimize our love lives, careers, and health with algorithms. But have you noticed that the more you live like a precision machine, the less you feel the warmth of life? The second god is money and consumption. It tells you in the bluntest terms, your worth is equal to your bank balance, equal to the things you own. It promises that if you just buy that bag, that car, that house, you will attain happiness and respect. So you work yourself to the bone, trading your life for symbols, only to find yourself trapped on a conveyor belt of desire, never satisfied, never at peace. The third god is the gaze of others. In the age of social media, this god wields supreme power. You meticulously craft your online persona, counting every like and follow. You live in the opinions of others, like a marionette adjusting your expressions and movements based on the audience's reaction. You long to be seen, yet you never show your true self.
You are connected to thousands, yet you feel more alone than ever. And the last, most hidden and dangerous God is called the self. We shout, "Be yourself, love yourself," and hold up self-actualization as the holy grail. But this often conceals a deeper trap. We worship the fragile, anxious, approval-seeking ego as a god. We become obsessed with self-analysis and self-improvement, as if life were a video game of constant leveling up. We are not truly becoming ourselves, we are anxiously performing an idealized version of ourselves. These new gods differ from the old one in a fundamental way. They are fragile, temporary, and man-made. They cannot offer you any eternal solace. When an economic crisis hits, the god of money falls from its pedestal. When failure strikes, the god of success shatters into dust. When the crowd disperses, the god of others' gaze plunges you into the abyss. We personally killed the one eternal God, only to build on the ruins a series of idol temples made of mud and desire, temples that could collapse at any moment. We thought this was freedom, but it is in fact a deeper form of slavery. Because when you entrust the meaning of your life to these fragile idols, you surrender your most precious power, the power to define your own worth. You are like a gambler, betting your soul on a game you are destined to lose. And this game, in a way you can barely perceive, is quietly and irreversibly shaping your destiny.
The stakes of this game are far higher than you imagine. What's being wagered is not just your mood today, but the entire trajectory of your life, and even the future of our society. In these unseen consequences, like a frog in slowly boiling water, are dragging us into a deeper predicament without our even noticing. The first consequence is the inflation of meaning. Imagine a world where gold is no longer rare, where every stone on the road is gold. Would gold still be valuable? Of course not. Our era exists in just such an inflation of meaning. When anything can be a meaning, then nothing has meaning anymore. Your brain, especially your prefrontal cortex, has an innate drive to find patterns and assign meaning. This was a key survival skill for our ancestors. But in a God-is-dead world, this ability has been overused to the point of absurdity. Today, your life's purpose can be traveling the world. Tomorrow, it can be minimalism. The day after, it's building a career in the metaverse. We change our ultimate goals as casually as we change our clothes. This constant switching, while it may seem to make your life rich and varied, is actually destroying your capacity for deep commitment. A deep commitment, whether to a person, a craft, or a belief, requires time, sacrifice, and the crucible of pain. It demands that you renounce other possibilities to put down deep roots in one direction. But in a consumer market filled with cheap meanings, putting down roots has become a foolish, almost laughable act. The temptation of the next best thing is always beckoning from a distance. As a result, your life becomes weightless, like a water lily pad adrift. You experience much, but you never truly possess anything. Your knowledge is fragmented, your emotions are fast food, your relationships are fluid. You appear incredibly free, but deep down, you know better than anyone that you've never truly invested your life because you're always afraid of choosing wrong, afraid of missing out on that more perfect meaning. The second consequence is a more insidious form of spiritual paralysis, which Nietzsche called the emergence of the last man. Who is the last man? He is not a bad person. On the contrary, he seems like the best kind of person. He is healthy, long-lived, has a stable job, and never takes risks. He pursues comfort and ease, avoiding all conflict and pain. His motto is, "We have invented happiness." In his world, there is no great love, no profound hatred, no ecstasy of creation, no agony of destruction. Everything has been flattened, made gentle, safe, and profoundly boring. The nihilistic void left by "God is dead" didn't turn us all into madmen. Instead, it turned most of us into last men. To escape the burden of that deed too great for us, the heavy responsibility of creating our own values, we have actively chosen to be small. We use endless entertainment, trivial daily routines, and pleasant social interactions to numb ourselves, to make ourselves forget that cosmic loneliness and fear. Look around. Isn't modern society mass-producing last men? Algorithms recommend the most comfortable content, trapping you in an information cocoon. Consumerism tells you happiness is just a purchase away, letting you fill your spiritual void with material things. Positive thinking culture teaches you to suppress negative emotions, forcing you to wear a smiling mask. The entire structure of society encourages you to abandon depth and embrace superficiality, to give up the struggle and choose to lie flat. The most terrifying aspect of this spiritual paralysis is that it makes you lose the desire to ascend. You no longer aspire to be a hero, a saint, or an artist. You just want to be a decent, normal person. You no longer ask, "What is the meaning of life?" You only care about, "What's for dinner tonight?" You renounce the possibility of becoming a god and willingly become a docile animal, content with the patch of grass before you. The final and most devastating consequence is the complete failure of the transvaluation of all values and the ultimate victory of nihilism. When Nietzsche proclaimed, "God is dead," his intention was never for us to weep in the ruins or simply give up. His declaration was a battle cry, an invitation to undertake the most radical revolution of all, the transvaluation of all values. He hoped we could break free from the good versus evil dualism that had enslaved us for millennia, to cast off the slave morality that makes people weak, resentful, and conformist, and thereby create a master morality for the strong, one that affirms life. This was the deed too great for us, but we failed. The vast majority of us lacked the courage and the ability to bear this creative responsibility. We killed the old God, but did not dare to become new gods. The result is that we have fallen into the worst possible state, passive nihilism. We no longer believe in any grand narratives, no longer have faith in any ultimate truths, but we haven't created any new values. We are just suspended in midair, unable to return to the solid ground of a world with a God, and unable to ascend to the sky of Nietzsche's Übermensch. In this state, everything becomes relative, hollow, and indifferent. Cynicism becomes the most fashionable form of wisdom, and deconstructing everything becomes the most profound mode of thought. We mock nobility, doubt love, and tear down heroes. We are experts at finding the flaws and darkness in everything, yet we are powerless to build anything beautiful. This is the heaviest chain that "God is dead" has shackled us with. We think we have seen it through all, but in reality, we are just using a cheap sense of seeing through things to mask our cowardice, our fear of creating, our fear of taking responsibility, our fear of love. We have become giants in thought, but dwarfs in action. We possess unprecedented freedom, yet we have used this freedom to build for ourselves the most perfect prison, a prison named whatever. So where is the key? Is it possible that in the corpse of the God we killed lies the secret to our rebirth? Is there a way for us to neither retreat into blind faith nor fall into nihilism, but to truly begin that deed too great for us?
The key has been in your hands all along. It is hidden in the very place you are most unwilling to look, within your own life. In every pain you have endured, every ecstasy you have felt, every moment of confusion you have navigated. Breaking out of this prison of whatever to begin that deed too great for us does not require you to find a new God outside yourself.
It requires you to turn inward and ignite the most radical, most courageous revolution of all. The first step of this revolution is not to find meaning, but to endure meaninglessness. Imagine you are back in that dark cosmos where the compass melted. This time, you do not frantically search for new coordinates. You simply float. You take a deep breath and feel the boundless void. You allow the weightlessness, the fear, the sense of being lost to wash over you like a tide and completely submerge you. You stop asking, "Where should I go?" and instead ask, "Here, in this void, who am I?" This is the beginning of the rebellion. It requires you to abandon your dependence on standard answers. All the maps and compasses given to you by society, culture, and others, you must, for a time, put them aside. You must have the courage to stand alone, naked, and face the most primordial truth of your existence. On the grand scale of the universe, your life has no pre-written objective meaning. To admit this is not an end, but a liberation. Because only when you give up the search for the one correct meaning do you truly gain the freedom to create meaning. Your life is no longer an application problem you need to solve. It has become a blank canvas, and you, for the first time, are holding the brush. The second step of this revolution is to embrace your love of fate. This is the warmest and most powerful core concept in Nietzsche's philosophy. It does not ask you to be resigned to your fate, to passively accept everything that happens. On the contrary, amor fati is an aggressively active stance. It demands that you love everything that happens in your life, not just the moments that bring you joy and success, but especially those that bring you pain, brokenness, and even despair. Why? Because those painful experiences, those blemishes on your life you desperately want to erase, are the very chisels and blades that have sculpted the unique individual that is you. Every monster you've met, every mistake you've made, every tear you have shed has carved indelible patterns into the depths of your soul. These patterns are the source of your strength, the unique signature that distinguishes you from everyone else. To love your fate means to stop regretting the past and worrying about the future. You must become an alchemist, throwing all the waste material of your life, your trauma, your failures, your shadow, into the furnace and smelting it into the gold from which you will forge your future. Consider Nietzsche, the writer who understood the human soul better than any psychologist. His life was filled with suffering, epilepsy, gambling addiction, exile in Siberia, a mock execution. He did not complain about his fate. Instead, he transmuted these hellish experiences into his breathtaking reflections on the abyss of human nature. He fell in love with his destiny, and in doing so, he transcended it. You can, too. Your misunderstood sensitivity is not a curse. It is your gift for seeing into the hearts of others. That excruciating heartbreak was not a failure. It was the required course for you to learn how to truly love. The anxiety and unease in your heart are not a sickness. They are the fuel driving you to constantly overcome yourself. When you can look at everything that has happened in your life, good and bad, and say from the bottom of your heart, "Yes, I would live it again and again, eternally," you transform from a victim manipulated by fate into an artist who dances with it. The final step of this revolution is to become a creator of values. This sounds grand, but it actually happens in every small choice you make. When you stop asking, "What should I do?" and start asking, "What kind of world do I want to create, even if that world only exists within my own heart?" you are exercising the power of a god. You don't have to write a great symphony or found a new philosophy. Creating value can be choosing honesty over platitudes in a conversation. It can be speaking up instead of staying silent in the face of injustice. It can be choosing to polish your craft with a clumsy but reverent devotion when everyone else is taking shortcuts. To create value is to take your most authentic inner feelings, your love, your anger, your passion, your aesthetic sense,
and pour them unreservedly and without regard for the consequences into everything you do. You don't do it for the approval of others or in exchange for money or status. You simply do it because doing so makes you feel more intensely alive. The overman that Nietzsche spoke of is not a monster with superpowers. He is exactly this kind of person. He is a spiritual aristocrat whose moral standards spring from his own overflowing life force. He is not obeying rules. He is the source of rules. So, the way out of the cage is not a comfortable paved road. It is a steep, solitary mountain path that you must climb alone. It demands that you give up security and embrace uncertainty, that you stop complaining and love your entire life, that you cease consuming meaning and start creating it. It is difficult. It is even cruel, but it is the only way. Because at the end of this path, what awaits you is not a new God, nor a final answer, but a truth far more stunning than all of that, an ultimate realization that will completely overturn your understanding of yourself, of life, and of the universe.
Now, let us return to where it all began, to that absolute darkness, that melting compass, that bone-deep fear. We have deconstructed the modern idols, endured the weight of meaninglessness, embraced the totality of our fate, and attempted to become creators of value. You might think that the end of this journey is to find a new, sturdier compass, a North Star of your own engraved with my meaning. But the final truth is far more subversive and far more beautiful. The final truth is you don't need a compass at all. You are the cosmos. Let that sink in. When Nietzsche said God is dead, it wasn't just a proclamation. It was a handover ceremony. He wasn't asking you to fill the empty throne. He was telling you that the throne itself was always an illusion. The center of the universe was never located in some external God or truth. It was always right here, with you. This epiphany is what Nietzsche called the eternal recurrence. It is not a scientific theory, but an ultimate and most terrifying thought experiment. Imagine that a demon were to creep into your loneliest loneliness in the middle of the night and say to you, "This life, as you now live it and have lived it, you will have to live once more and innumerable times more, and there will be nothing new in it, but every pain and every joy, every thought and sigh, and everything unutterably small or great in your life will have to return to you, all in the same succession and sequence." How would you react to this news? Would you collapse, curse, and scream in despair? Would you think of all the unbearable humiliations, the irreversible mistakes, the heart-wrenching agonies of your life, and fall into madness at the thought of their eternal repetition? A last man would. A passive nihilist would. A person who stakes their life's meaning on external idols would. Because his life is full of moments he would never want to face again. His life is a struggle to escape pain and pursue false comforts. To have such a life recur eternally would be the most wicked curse. But a person who has truly undergone the revolution we spoke of, one who has embraced amor fati, one who has become a creator of values, his reaction would be completely different. He would look up, meet the demon's gaze, and answer, calmly and powerfully, "You are a god, and never have I heard anything more divine." Why? Because for him, every single moment of his life, good or bad, is filled with an irreplaceable value that he himself has bestowed upon it. His pain is proof of his strength. His joy is the fruit of his creation. His life is not a straight line rushing towards some endpoint. It is a symphony in which every single note is worthy of being played an infinite number of times. He no longer judges his life by the standards of useful or useless, success or failure. The only standard by which he judges his life is this: was this moment lived so fully, so honestly, so intensely that I would will it to repeat for all eternity? This is the true power of the eternal recurrence thought experiment. It acts as the ultimate filter, instantly weeding out everything false, cowardly, and inauthentic in your life. It forces you, with every choice you make, every word you speak, every thought you have, to ask yourself, is this something I am willing to have repeated 1,000,000,000,000 times? When you begin to live by this standard, a miracle happens. You no longer procrastinate because you want the action of this moment to be worthy of eternity. You no longer lie because you cannot bear to have a moment filled with falsehood replayed infinitely. You no longer indulge in cheap entertainment because it fails the test of the eternal recurrence. You begin to love, to create, and to experience with courage, because only these moments, brimming with life force, are worthy of eternity. God is dead. This statement ultimately leads not to nihilism, but to the most radical affirmation of the now. It shatters the distant heaven, the illusory future, the expectation of a final judgment, and then it returns all divinity, all meaning, and all power of judgment to you, right here, in this very second. Your life is no longer a dress rehearsal for some final goal. Every moment of your life is the final, the one and only, the eternal performance. So stop searching. Stop looking for an external authority to save you, for a one-size-fits-all answer to life. Everything you are looking for is already within you. You are the murderer who killed God, and you must also be the creator who inherits his divinity. Stand in this cosmos without coordinates and feel your heartbeat. That beat is the only rhythm. Feel your breath. That breath is the only direction. Go and live. Go and love. Go and suffer. And go and create. Go and live a life that, even if you had to repeat it 1,000,000,000,000 times, you would, with tears in your eyes and a smile on your face, shout, "Yes, I am willing." Because when you truly achieve that, you don't need God. You are your own God.